Here's my audience. Hello, my name is Hayden, and today I will be talking about genetically modified foods and why we should ban them. Have you ever wondered if you're eating genetically modified food? Maybe you haven't, but considering that genetically modified food is part of our life and how we live, we should know whether or not, without a doubt, that it is safe to eat. Now, there's many concerns that come with genetically modified foods, or otherwise known as GMOs. I will be talking about the three main concerns when it comes to genetically modified foods and how it will affect our future and how it does affect our present now. I will be talking about antibiotic resistance, allergens, and genetic diversity. Before I get into what I want to discuss first, I would like to show a graph of how crops are genetically modified. As you can see, there are 5 different ways we genetically modify crops. And the 2 main ways we use are RNA inference and transgenics, which is the transfer of different genes and DNAs from other plants to another. This graph was from the website Literacy Project. The first subject I would like to talk about is antibiotic resistance. From the sources, ampicillin, genetically modified foods, safety, risk, and concern, antibiotic resistance, and genetically modified plants. There are antibiotic genes in GMOs that pose many risks of resistance. What this might mean is that with the consumption of certain foods, humans and both animals pose the risk of becoming resistant to certain antibiotics that are used in genetically modified foods. When we transfer antibiotic genes to another food or plant, with consumption, humans can be resistant. Now, the 2 main antibiotics we use are kanamycin and ampicillin for the genetically modified foods. Now, these both treat bacterial infections, and specifically, ampicillin treats a specific infection called sepsis, which is a blood infection that can become fatal to those who aren't treated for it. Now, if humans become resistant to these antibiotics, we could potentially die because of it, or find a harder cure because of the resistance that is posed from eating GMOs. The next topic I would like to talk about is allergens. From the sources Understanding Genetically Modified Foods in the GMO Puzzle, we find that modification and additional genes to foods and plants, we pose a risk of new allergens or allergic reactions to new foods because of certain transferred proteins. Now, how this works is when we transfer proteins that people are commonly allergic to into another plant to either improve nutrients or do other things, we can, by consuming that genetically modified plant, have an allergic reaction. Like, to explain and have an example, if you take a genetic protein from a peanut and transfer it to a different food, and someone with a peanut allergy eats that GMO, they could potentially have an allergic reaction. And personally, I know many people with severe peanut allergies, and the fact that GMOs are not labeled could cause much harm and could cause much fatality or severe harm. The next topic I would like to talk about is genetic diversity. Now, genetic diversity is a big concern around the world when it comes to GMOs, as multiple countries have banned GMOs in their country because of how it could affect genetic diversity. And from the sources Biodiversity in Agriculture and What is Biodiversity, we find that we know that we rely on genetic diversity and that it maintains and keeps balance of our ecosystem. And how this works is if we plant genetically modified crops into an existing environment with different plants and animals, the GMOs pose a risk of overrunning or causing certain plants to go extinct in that certain environment. And that overall affects us for a food source and the wildlife around who also uses that as a food source. So this will both cause an effect to us, the environment, and animals in the area. And overall, this will harm the environment and biodiversity all around the world. And this will affect the safety and health of food for both wildlife and humans. And without genetic diversity, we cannot live. So in conclusion, and to wrap up this speech, I hope you've learned through the multiple things I've talked about today with antibiotic resistance, allergens, and genetic diversity that there are many risks and concerns when it comes to genetically modified foods. And with the ban of GMOs, we can prevent future problems that could affect us more seriously if we don't take action now. And a saying I would like to introduce is that a small spark can burn a forest. I feel this resonates with the topic, as if we ignore these issues and concerns we see now, there will be greater consequences in the future if we do nothing about it. I hope today you've learned many things about genetically modified food and how it can affect our future and how it affects us now. Thank you for taking your time to listen. My audience.